Good afternoon, I'm Leila Masimova and you're watching A News. Now the major stories making headlines today. Pope Francis passed away at 88 years old. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth allegedly shared war plans in another Signal group chat. The Easter ceasefire declared by Russian President Vladimir Putin has ended in failure, with Russia and Ukraine accusing each other of violations. Pope Francis, the leader of the Roman Catholic Church, has passed away at the age of 88. Cardinal Kevin Farrell, the Vatican Camerlengo, announced. The point-of-born Jorge Mario Bergoglio in Buenos Aires, Argentina, became the first Jesuit and the first Latin American Pope upon his election in 2013. Known for his humility and advocacy for social justice, environmental protection, and the rights of migrants.
Pope Francis, the 266th leader of the Roman Catholic Church, has died at the age of 88. Born Jorge Mario Bergoglio on the 17th of December in 1936 in Buenos Aires, Argentina, to Italian immigrant parents, he initially pursued a career in chemistry before feeling a spiritual calling. Joining the Society of Jesus in 1958, he was ordained a priest in 1969 and later became Archbishop of Buenos Aires in 1998, gaining recognition for his humility and commitment to social justice. He became the Pope on the 13th of March in 2013, following the resignation of Pope Benedict XVI. It was an historic event because he became the first Jesuit and the first Latin American to lead the Catholic Church. By choosing the name Francis, he signaled a papacy dedicated to humility, service, and reform. Throughout his tenure, the pontiff was a vocal advocate for environmental protection, economic justice, and the rights of migrants and refugees. His 2015, in his formal letter to the bishops, called for urgent action against climate change, while his Fratelli Tutti translates to all brothers in English and is inspired by the teachings of St. Francis of Assisi. The document emphasizes the importance of universal fraternity and social friendship, calling for a more inclusive and compassionate society. In 2020, focused on fraternity and critiqued unregulated capitalism. He reshaped the Church's leadership by appointing 111 cardinals and canonizing nearly 900 saints, including Mother Teresa and his predecessors John XXIII, John Paul II, and Paul VI. Pope Francis's era also coincided with significant global conflicts, including wars with Russia and Ukraine, and with Israel and Hamas. These crises highlighted the urgent need for dialogue, peace, and humanitarian support, which were key themes in his papacy, as he consistently advocated for peaceful resolutions and the protection of vulnerable populations affected by these wars. His leadership was not without controversy. His progressive stance on migration, handling of clerical sexual abuse scandals, and financial reforms drew both admiration and criticism. Yet, he remained steadfast in his mission, shaping the modern Catholic Church in ways that will be felt for generations. With his passing, the College of Cardinals will now convene to elect a successor. Among the most discussed names are Cardinal Matteo Zuppi of Italy, known for his diplomatic efforts, and Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle of the Philippines, celebrated for his pastoral work. As the world mourns the passing of Pope Francis, his legacy endures, a pope who sought to bring the Church closer to the people, advocate for the vulnerable, and challenge the status quo. While his time on earth has concluded, the impact of his papacy will resonate for years to come, setting a precedent for future leadership in the Church.
In his last message, Easter message, Pope Francis called on Azerbaijan and Armenia to sign a peace agreement as soon as possible. He expressed hope that the two countries will reach reconciliation and the region will be restored. The point also addressed the situation in the Holy Land. This year, Catholics and Orthodox Christians celebrated Easter on the same day. He expressed concern over the violence in Israel and Palestine. Pope Francis also prayed for Christian communities in Lebanon and Syria and also called for peace between Russia and Ukraine. Defense Secretary Pete Heghseth is under scrutiny after allegedly sharing details of a March attack on Yemen's Iran-aligned Houthis in a messaging group chat included his wife, brother and lawyer. The New York Times reports that he used an unclassified system. It raises concerns about handling sensitive information. Heghseth allegedly shared the same details of the attacks that were revealed last month by The Atlantic magazine. It's after its editor-in-chief Jeffrey Goldberg was mistakenly added to a separate Signal Group app chat involving all of the President Donald Trump's senior national security officials. Meanwhile, Hegseth's advisor Dan Caldwell was escorted from the Pentagon last week amid a leak investigation. The Pentagon has yet to comment on the matter. In Yemen, the latest airstrike has killed 12 people and injured 30 others late on Sunday, according to Houthi officials. It happened in a crowded marketplace in the residential neighborhood of Farwa in Sana'a. Local media says the strikes continue throughout the night, saying it's a part of a wider wave of U.S. targeting the capital. The incident follows just days after a deadly U.S. assault on the Ras Issa fuel port in western Yemen late Thursday night, which led to significant fuel spills into the Red Sea. Houthi health officials reported 80 people were killed and 170 others were wounded. U.S. Special Envoy General Heghseth said that Ukraine will not be joining NATO, affirming a U.S. position held since 2008. Speaking on the behalf of President Donald Trump's administration, Heghseth said the team will return to London this week for further ceasefire talks aimed at ending the ongoing war in Ukraine. Heghseth also revealed that a minerals deal is being discussed as a part of a broader framework for a lasting ceasefire and peace agreement. A 30-hour Easter ceasefire declared by Russian President Vladimir Putin has ended in failure, with both Russia and Ukraine accusing each other of thousands of violations. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky says Russian forces broke the truce nearly 3,000 times on Sunday, while Russia claims it repelled Ukrainian assaults and drone attacks. The Kremlin confirmed there are no plans to extend the ceasefire. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump says that he hopes for a peace deal this week, though offered no details. There is more tension in the global markets as Asian equities and U.S. stock futures slid on Monday. Anxieties over tariffs and public criticism of the Federal Reserve by U.S. President Donald Trump hit sentiment, pushing the dollar down sharply and catapulting safe haven gold to a record high.
On Monday, the Asian and US stock markets saw declines, and the value of the dollar also dropped. Experts say it's because of President Donald Trump's pressure on the Federal Reserve and concerns over trade tariffs. Last week, Trump sharply criticized Fed Chairman Jerome Powell, and now his team is discussing the possibility of removing him from his position. This could pose a serious threat to the independence of the US central bank. On Sunday, many Asian markets began to rise. The Japanese market opened slightly lower on Monday as a strong yen put pressure on exporters. In South Korea, the KOSPI index opened up by 0.06%. China, particularly the Shanghai Stock Exchange, rose later in the day as tensions in the trade dispute with the US seemed to ease. Because of Trump's tariff policies and pressure on the Fed weakening the dollar, it's led to the euro reaching its highest level in 3 years, and the yen reaching its highest level in 7 months. The Swiss franc also strengthened against the dollar. Investors are waiting for financial reports this week from technology companies such as Alphabet, Intel, and Tesla. These corporations are facing significant value losses in 2025. Additionally, gold prices have reached a record level, increasing by 26% this year. The trade dispute between the US and China continues. While Trump has stated that negotiations are going well, China demands that the US should show respect first.
Talks between Iranian and U.S. experts will resume in Muscat together with mediators on Wednesday. That's according to the Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister Kazem Garibabadli. He said the discussions will focus on technical details while general principles are still under negotiation, according to a report from TASS information agency. This comes after the second round of indirect US-Iran talks held in Rome on Saturday, where delegations communicated through Omani Foreign Minister Badr al-Busaidi. The next meeting is set to take place this Saturday, following the expert-level consultations this week. However, Iran, which calls its nuclear program peaceful, says it's willing to discuss limited curbs to its atomic work in return for lifting international sanctions. With technical issues on the table and big questions still up in the air, what could this next round of talks mean for the both sides? To help us unpack that, I'm joined by Enrique Cocero, a political analyst from Madrid. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Enrique, looking ahead, what are likely the next steps for both Washington and Tehran in these nuclear talks?
First and foremost, I think we're making significant steps forward in order to just pass from intermediate conversations in Rome to a direct conversation right now in the next days in Oman. But here the problem is, for me, the problem are two. The first one is, if we know Iran for something, apart for cultural and social questions, is because they are huge in two issues. The first one is nuclear armament, and the second one is nuclear technology, which means that if Iran can find a path, or the United States or the world organizations, whoever can find a way for Iran to recondition it, to reorient it, that technology, just specified done for building weapons, into a new way to apply that technology. If they do not reconvey that technology, I think that this is not going to happen. Right, because they are facing this. Okay, you can have this amount of uranium enriched into this proportion and whatever, but all the things that Iran are doing are focused on weapons and try to increase the power of the, if you want to say it that way, of the threat of having nuclear weapons, right? And the second fact in here is another indirect conversation, which is Israel. And the United States are so tied to Israel in order not to make Iran a nuclear high-ranked country, that probably we can see first steps towards an agreement, but the final word in there is gonna have it a country which is not gonna be in that conversation, and that country is Israel. So there are a lot of things on the fence right now in order to reach an agreement. it happened. It didn't happen on. It didn't happen on Roma, and we just have to wait in order to see any kind of step forward or any advance on the way in Oman.
And if a deal is reached, how might inspections of Iran's nuclear facilities actually work in practice?
What we know for sure is that Iran is a very vertical country in order to describe the government. If they can reach an agreement, that transition has to be done in a very, very cautious way. And it's not something that once they reach that agreement, it's not something that we're going to see immediately. Probably it's going to take months, if not years. When I say months, it's not going to be 10 or 12. There is going to be probably, 3 years, 4 years in order to make that transition. And I'm not quite sure that Iran is going to sell cheap the agreement. So let's see. I think it's quite premature because we already don't know exactly what are the terms for reaching that agreement for Iran. And I'm not meaning just leave the sanctions, which is for me is the easiest way to reach an agreement. It's just what's going to happen with this technology in order to apply it in another sense, because this is not the first thing that we are watching, that the civil technology is applying on war technology, or on the other way, the war technology is being applied on civil technology. We're watching this on China with the shipbuilding, all those places where in China they are building new ships, they are mixing and they are sharing war technology with civil technology, yes. And leaving that path. And I presume that this is happening with nuclear power and nuclear technology in Iran. Leaving that path is not going to be an easy way. It's not going to be an easy path to walk. So let's see what's going on in Oman, because sanctions for me right now is the most easy thing to say, is the easiest thing to say yes in this conversations.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That was Enrique Cosero, a political analyst who joined us from Madrid. And a bid to fast-track a trade agreement and ease tensions over tariffs, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance is in India this week. He'll be talking with Prime Minister Narendra Modi alongside a mix of official and personal engagements.
U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance began a 4-day visit to India on Monday. He'll be holding talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi as both sides push to finalize an early trade deal and deepen ties under the Trump administration. The visit comes as India seeks to avoid steep U.S. tax hikes by accelerating negotiations on a bilateral agreement. It focuses on fair trade and defense cooperation. They're expected to review progress on this agenda, which was set earlier this year. Meanwhile, India has reportedly signaled its willingness to reduce tariffs on more than half of its $41.8 billion worth of U.S. imports as part of the proposed deal. Vance will also be visiting the Taj Mahal and attending a wedding in Jaipur with his family. His wife, Usha, is of Indian heritage. The trip comes after the Vice President made a stop in Rome, where he met with Pope Francis on Easter Sunday. Meanwhile, Indian Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman is in the U.S. for a 4-day trip, with meetings set with the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, as well as G20 finance talks. Sitharaman says India aims to conclude the first phase of this trade pact with the United States by the autumn. And India's chief trade negotiator, Rajesh Agrawal, will travel to Washington on Wednesday for a 3-day trip. as both sides work towards a deal within the 90-day pause on tariff hikes announced by President Donald Trump a week ago.
Tensions between Washington and Beijing are flaring once again, according to reports, as China warns countries not to side with the United States in what it calls a dangerous and unilateral trade campaign. It came after the U.S. announced plans to pressure nations to limit trade with China to avoid new tariffs on their exports.
China is accusing Washington of abusing tariffs and warns countries against striking a broader economic deal with the United States at its expense. The comments ratchets up its rhetoric in a spiraling trade war between the world's two biggest economies. The move comes as US President Donald Trump moves ahead with sweeping new tariffs, sparing most countries except China. Beijing now faces duties of up to 145%. While other nations enjoy a 90-day pause. China has threatened resolute countermeasures against any trade partners that harm its economic interests, including raising levies on American goods to 125%. The country also plans to convene an informal United Nations Security Council meeting this week, claiming America is using trade as a weapon and its impact on global development efforts. Meanwhile, Washington continues negotiations with a growing list of trade partners. Japan, South Korea, and Indonesia are among those exploring deals, some reportedly considering increased US imports and a shift away from Chinese goods. President Trump argues that the tax hikes will help revive US manufacturing, raise government revenue, and boost domestic consumption. But economists warn that undoing decades of global supply chain integration will take time and could expose global markets to short-term volatility.
Humanoid robots participated in the Yizhuang Health Marathon in Beijing, marking a world first, and the 20 first machines completed the race. While some successfully finished, others encountered technical issues along the way.
Thousands of runners participated in the Yizhuang Half Marathon in Beijing. But this year's event stood out for an unusual reason. 21 humanoid robots joined the race, marking the first time machines have competed alongside humans over a full 21-kilometer course. Developed by Chinese companies, including Droid VP and Noatex Robotics, the robots came in various shapes and sizes, ranging from just over a meter tall or nearly 6 feet. Each robot was accompanied by a human trainer, some of whom had to physically assist or steady the machines during the race.
There is a kind of sportsmanship, whether it's humans or robots, they're all exercising. It feels like I'm watching the development of machines, the development of AI.
While some robots managed to complete the course, others struggled early on. One fell at the starting line, but rebooted and continued, while another lost control and crashed into a railing, taking its operator down with it. Despite the setbacks, the event was seen as a major step forward in real-world testing for robotics.
For me, regarding some industrial or pan-industrial scenarios, I think in the next 2 or 3 years you will see some very good products which may be ours or other industry peers. Yes, and then in the future it will be about the commercial aspects. That is, for example, 3 to 5 years, there will be some commercial finalization scenarios, but there may some overlap in the middle. And finally, I think that after about 5 years, this type of products will begin to appear in this kind of life and family scenarios.
The top-performing machine, Tiangong Ultra, developed by the Beijing Innovation Center of Human Robotics, finished the race in 2 hours and 40 minutes. For comparison, the men's human winner crossed the line in just over an hour. Organizers said the race showcased the progress of robotics technology and its potential future integration into daily life.
In Azerbaijan, Easter and Passover are more than religious holidays which Orthodox Christians, Catholics and Jews celebrate freely side by side, as communities openly observe their holidays with support from the state.
From children with wonder in their eyes to elders passing down sacred traditions, lighting candles, and young people embracing faith in a modern world. In Azerbaijan, a country where cultures and religions intertwine, Easter becomes more than a celebration. It's a shared moment of reflection, renewal, and unity. For Orthodox Christians, Easter is the most important religious holiday. The Holy Myrrh-bearer Women Cathedral is a church in Baku and the headquarters of Baku Eparchy. In churches across Baku and other cities, believers gather for midnight services, lighting candles to symbolize the resurrection of Christ and sharing the traditional greeting, Azerbaijan's small but vibrant Catholic community, centered at the Church of the Immaculate Conception in Baku, also marks the resurrection of Jesus with solemn masses, prayer, and community gatherings. The church welcomes all, citizens, diplomats, and visitors alike.
Through our Lord Jesus Christ, your Son, who lives and reigns with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, one God forever and ever.
Amen.
The Jewish community celebrates the last day of Passover around the same time, commemorating their exodus from Egypt and their journey to freedom. Synagogues in Baku and Kuba host Seder meals, where families retell the story of liberation.
Imagine this. We have been on this land for over 25 centuries, yet we have not only preserved our national and spiritual values and our centuries-old traditions, but we have also enriched them. Pesach is also a celebration of spring, and as a spring holiday, it is also a symbol of people's faith in the Almighty. In Azerbaijan, we freely practice our beliefs and offer our prayers to God. It is also a festival of happiness. We have cherished this holiday throughout the centuries, just like all our other celebrations, because it represents freedom.
Azerbaijan prides itself on being a secular nation where religious tolerance is more than a principle, it's a way of life. The government supports all religious communities, and interfaith harmony is deeply rooted in the country's culture. Whether it's the chime of church bells, the lighting of candles, or the reading of ancient texts, Azerbaijan's diverse faiths share one common thread: the freedom to believe and the spirit of peaceful coexistence.
The Prime Minister of Armenia, Nikol Pashinyan, has criticized the country's past and present constitutions, emphasizing that they do not reflect the will of the people. He stated that the referendums held on the constitutions did not accurately represent the views and desires of the public. The Prime Minister highlighted a significant gap between legal orders and society in Armenia, which he sees as a key cause of ongoing justice system issues. He proposed that the new constitution should not reference the declarations of independence and announce plans for a referendum in 2027. However, some in his team suggest holding it alongside the 2026 parliamentary elections. Pashinyan considers these changes an internal matter, but warned they could have serious regional and international consequences. And more on this subject, joining us live now is Murad Muradov, co-founder and deputy director of Top Chubashev Center. Thank you very much indeed for joining us today.
Good afternoon.
Murad, Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan talked about a gap between the legal order and society, saying that the official results of the previous constitutional referendums did not generally reflect the people's will. So how successful has he been so far in making a case for a new constitution?
I must say this far, his success has been mixed at best. On one hand, he tried his best to present the issue not as one related exclusively to the Karabakh conflict and to reconciliation with Azerbaijan, but as a matter of strategic importance for statehood. And so he's been emphasizing that actually the Commission has started work in 2024. And his main purpose is to match the Armenian statehood with the principles of his government, and as he sees it, meaning that current Armenia is more democratic, more liberal, compared to the country which gained independence like 35 years ago. And on the other hand, of course, the majority of the public have still strong nationalist feelings, and many of them perceive the new constitution, which will not have reference to the Declaration of Independence, as a betrayal of the so-called Armenian cause, which includes also relatives of Karabakh. And of course, Pashinyan will have, in the upcoming year, because most probably the referendum will take place someplace in 2026, he will have to do a lot of work in trying to persuade people to vote in favor of it.
Mm-hmm. And many analysts believe Pashinyan is trading tightrope over the constitutional issue. Have the idea of holding a referendum alongside the 2026 parliamentary elections been shelved already? Can they still be held simultaneously to ensure the public quorum?
It may, yeah, of course. And Pashinyan just recently said that actually many people in his party asked him to have them simultaneously. I think there's certain logic to that. So if we assume that the majority of the public is reluctant to vote for this constitution, Pashinyan, especially given that now the revanchist nationalist opposition on the rise, he may present it as a final battle to preserve the democratic and pro-Western, let's say, future of Armenia, and also a peaceful future of Armenia. And I think you may put it very bluntly, saying that the refusal to adopt a new constitution will basically mean the failure of the peace process and a renewed threat of war with Azerbaijan. And I think that despite all this national sentiment, still most Armenians now wouldn't really like to face a threat of a new war. The wounds, the experience of the Fallujah War and that happened is still very fresh. So I think he will try to use it as an argument because it's still an open issue, and he also understands that. And I think Azerbaijan made it clear that will not be satisfied with half measures. So holding simultaneous elections in a referendum may somehow frame it as a vote of approval of his government in general, and of the vision of Armenia that he is trying to pursue.
Yes. Thank you. This was Murad Muradov, co-founder and deputy director at Top Chuvashev Center. Thanks for spending your moment with A News. Until next time.